Teacher just told me I was being selfish for choosing to homeschool rather than staying to fix the system. Here's my response. I'm not sacrificing my children on the altar of your failing institution. That's insane. In my 13 plus years as an educator and school principal, here's what I learned. The system doesn't want to be fixed. But here's how leaving the system is fixing it. I'm Dr. Blake Willard, and in the next few minutes, I'll show you why the stay and fight argument is a logical fallacy, how competition is the only thing that will save public education, and why choosing your children over the system is the most noble thing that you can do. By the end, you'll understand why homeschool choice isn't selfish. It's the solution the system desperately needs. Clayton Christensen's disruption theory, plus the impact of school choice data, has shown monopolies only improve under competitive pressure. School choice states see 12% improvement in public schools. You hear that? When we have more choice, better competition leads to better results for everybody. Public schools only rise when there's legitimate competition pushing them to become better. Your exit creates the pressure that forces improvement. And again, 13 plus years as an educator, I watched reform after reform fail. People are constantly coming forward with ideas in order to try to create change. But the system is so massive and all consuming, it's very inflexible and very difficult to do something that actually works its way all the way down to create change at a fundamental level. $800 billion annually, decades of initiatives, and the same results. $800 billion every year is being spent on public education. Do we see massive change? No. You know what actually improves schools? It's when parents have other options. And today, more than ever, parents are starting to have more options, and homeschool is becoming the option for many parents, growing faster than any other form of education in America. And the important thing is when parents have choices and they can vote with their feet, everybody has to be forced to start to improve, to get better, or else they die. And whether the system dies or is reformed, the only thing that's really going to create that change is when parents start voting with their feet and having more choices available to them. The system doesn't fear your voice at school board meetings. It fears your exit. When school board meetings start becoming empty because there's no parents there to vote on issues, that's when we know real change is happening because again, a dying school is a desperate school. When they lose their funding, they have to change their outputs. They have to start changing their actions. Otherwise, they're going to evaporate. And this is going to be true anyways. Schools are shrinking. Schools are not only shrinking because more people are leaving, but this is actually starting last year. The smallest generation of kids is what's coming up right now, which means there's just going to be less kids to fill the same amount of schools. And if people aren't happy with the outputs of those schools, more and more of those schools are going to shut down. For some people, that might be painful, but for others, they're going to know that some of these schools are not worth saving. And if the things that people go to are better for them, their children, and the society around them, then that's a win for everyone. Your children are not martyrs for someone else's reform fantasy. Here's the thing. When people are asking you to reform rather than being okay with competition, what they're really saying is they don't believe this thing can be saved if you don't stay to fix it. They're asking you to sacrifice your child's future for their job security. And that, they're calling you selfish, but it's really a selfish ask because if you choose to make that sacrifice, take on those expenses and sacrifice that time for your children, it's not going to hurt you. It's going to help your family, even though there will be challenges. But it very well may genuinely affect the income of some of those people that are dependent on that failing system. So let's start talking about the system, our framework. It's called the Noble Exit Strategy. And there's three main components. First is mission clarity. Your children come first, period. Right? And in any circumstance, in any decision that comes before you, if you are prioritizing your children first and above other things, that's noble. It's worthwhile. And no matter how many people want to argue about it, it's completely legitimate. Right? It's probably the most legitimate decision that you can make, which is to prioritize someone else, the person who you are most responsible for, without sacrificing them for someone else's agenda. Number two, market pressure. Your exit forces improvement. Competition is what raises all ships. Okay, so we need competition. And when you choose to exit to go explore and pursue something else, it's going to force, because of your quality outcomes, other things to start rising to try to follow those outcomes. And then number three, it's proof of concept. Your success shows that it's possible. There were, especially a couple decades ago, a lot of naysayers and a lot of fears and a lot of doubts about homeschooling. It was much smaller and it was much more stigmatized. But more and more people are starting to be multi-generational homeschoolers and starting to show proof of concept as they have kids who have actually come through a new family system that has generated better results and better successes. So your success testifies to the possibilities of choosing these other options. Another thing to think about, CEOs don't stay with failing vendors out of loyalty, right? If if you're responsible to lead a company and some of the things that you are contracting or some of the people that you're working with are causing that company to slowly die, then you cut those vendors off, right? You start to form different relationships because the company ultimately is more important than these individual like vendors, right? Loyalty is great as long as it's mutual. But a lot of times when people are asking us to stay in the school system and to reform it, they're asking us to be loyal to something that isn't loyal to us. What an unrealistic and unfair expectation. Parents shouldn't stay with failing schools out of guilt. You may have guilt about it. I want the school to succeed. I want these teachers to be fruitful and to help more children. And I'd like to be able to send my children to a school system that I feel good about. But that's not the reality that we live in. And so it's not selfish to look for change. Every family that leaves sends a message, we expect better. And it's completely reasonable of each and every one of us to look at that system and say, we expect better, right? Because when I think about all the things that we do for our children, we're feeding them organic food, we're making things from scratch. Like everything that we put into them, we want to make sure is good for them. Why would it be any different with the formation of their mind and their heart and their character, which is exactly what they're getting when they're getting formal instruction for the vast majority of their waking day, right? So if it's not good, it's not unreasonable to say we want the inputs. We want the things that are forming our children to be good for them. Every homeschool success, every story of your wins, of your victories, proves that alternatives work. And more people, more and more of our society and the world around us needs to know that it's okay for innovation and exploration in education. That doesn't mean that everything that you do as a homeschooler is going to be a perfect execution and is going to work perfectly. But here's what's nice. When the system needs change, it's so big, it's so bloated that change is nearly impossible. But when you need change as a home educator, you can pivot on a dime in a moment. And because of that, you can see when something isn't working and you're not married to a past attempt, to a past idea that doesn't work for your family. You can quickly pivot and continue to alter your course, slowly moving closer and closer towards your goal until you reach the approach that best suits your children and family. Meaning, that's a part of the experimentation process, kind of like a small business, constantly pivoting and moving closer and closer towards your goal. It's when you can't pivot that you end up stuck in a broken system and a broken solution. You're not abandoning the system, you're showing it what excellence looks like and can look like. Staying in a broken system doesn't fix it. It enables it, right? It's like someone staying in an abusive relationship. All you're doing is enabling further abuse, right? Sometimes the most healthy thing you can do for yourself and for that other person is to cut ties and go your own way. And it's the same thing with trying to stay in a broken system. They want you to be the Titanic band playing while the ship sinks. Maybe it's time to get on a lifeboat and seek shelter somewhere else. You have permission to put your children first, and anyone who says otherwise is seeking their own interests rather than the interest of the people that you're responsible to train, equip, protect. So, what does this mean? Let's talk about the start. What would it look like to start today? First things first, today, you need to reject guilt about prioritizing your children. There is nothing wrong with doing this. This is the sign of healthy parenting. And if you are more strongly considering someone else's opinions rather than your children, then they're going to be the ones who suffer. So prioritize your children today. It's okay to reject the guilt, to simply tune it out. And then this week, document why the current system isn't serving your family. This may be a long list, right? You may need a whole notebook, but document, give yourself reason, right? Really put it out there on paper of why leaving is the best choice for your family. And then this month, create your family's educational mission statement. Again, there's a proverb that says where there's no vision, the people will perish. Right? Give yourself clarity and direction by laying out your mission for your family and giving yourself the direction of where it is that you're actually seeking to go as a home education family. It's okay to stop apologizing for wanting better for your kids, right? You don't have to apologize for that. It's a good thing. And if that means something different than what the traditional norm has been, that's completely reasonable and okay. Your homeschool success is the best argument for educational freedom. So if people want to make their case against you, your success is what stops those arguments. Every thriving homeschool family is a billboard for what's possible. And you'll see this because as soon as you start homeschooling, people are going to start asking you what you're doing. You're going to be surprised at the friends and contacts and neighbors who start coming to you asking, just wanting to know a little bit more about homeschooling. What are you doing? What's working for you? How's it going? Right? You become a billboard. People will learn that you're doing it and they'll want to know if they can do it too. And because when you have real relationships with people, they feel much more comfortable questioning the system to people like you who have already shown it's possible. You're not running from the fight, you're just winning it differently, right? Again, people think you're abandoning the system and leaving it to fail rather than reforming it. Sometimes external pressure from better options from the outside is going to be the only thing that's going to cause that system to finally start questioning itself. Choosing your children over the system, again, it's not selfish, it's parenting. We parent our children by choosing constantly what's best for them rather than making rather than making compromises, right? We don't just do something because it's convenient. Well, we try not to do things because they're convenient. Homeschooling oftentimes, if we're being totally honest, is not convenient. But we're not prioritizing convenience, we're prioritizing our children, which means we willingly make sacrifices that we know are for their good. The real sacrifice is staying in a system that's failing your child, right? Some people don't think it's a sacrifice, but they will ultimately see the outcomes that will testify to what was really lost by choosing to stay in something rather than pivoting when the door was still open and they had the chance to have the most positive influence on their children's lives. Your exit is your vote for educational excellence. Why not choose excellence? Pursue it actively. And if everyone else gets better in the meantime, praise God. It's a good thing. So let's break down some of the logical fallacies that get thrown at parents who choose to homeschool so that you can better understand where this is coming from and equip yourself, whether it's to know how to shut it down or to just know that this isn't based in reason. The first fallacy, the sunk cost fallacy. The claim, you should stay because you've invested so much. Look, past investments don't justify future harm. It's true, you may have lost a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of frustration in a system that wasn't working. And you feel like if you leave that system, all of that is going to be for naught. But the truth is you can't go back and receive back or grab back what you've already spent or what you've already lost. It's sunk cost. And so trying to stay somewhere is only ensuring future failure because of past failure, right? The only thing that you can do is to cut your ties, count your losses, and make the best decision moving forward, right? Don't throw away good years after bad. The second fallacy is the false dilemma. You either stay and fight or you're giving up. Are those really our only options? Leaving is fighting with your feet and your wallet, creating change, creating competition, which actually is the external pressure, again, that forces the system to have to start questioning itself, to have to start improving. I'm fighting for my child, not your system. That's what I would encourage every parent to say who feels like they're getting this, this false dichotomy that it has to be this or it's this. No, 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 no. I'm always prioritizing my children. I'm always choosing what's best for my children. And if someone has an argument against that, then they're asking you to sacrifice your children. And I think that's the level that we have to bring things to when people are constantly putting these external pressures on you to stay and to fix it. what are they really asking, right? Because it's one thing to make a sacrifice that you have to bear. It's another thing to ask someone to sacrifice something when it doesn't cost them anything. Your children are the ones that get hurt by your sacrifice, right? So don't ask them to sacrifice something when they don't even have the choice. And then the third one, the appeal to the appeal to guilt fallacy. Good parents sacrifice for the greater good. There's that problem again. Good parents, truly good parents, prioritize their children's well-being. And if the school that you're in is awesome and you feel like it's beneficial to your children and your family, no one's asking you to leave. What we're saying is you have the right and the choice to choose what's best for your family and for your children. And if that means leaving, then that is a noble choice. My first responsibility is to my children, not to your institution, right? And anyone who tries to change that order is asking you to deprioritize that which should be prioritized, which again is your children. So here's the noble choice framework. Let's talk about the financial sacrifice of homeschoolers. The average homeschooler is giving up $35,000+ in lost annual income. That's a lot, right? So, of course, technically, most parents, when both parents are working, could generate more income. That's true. So choosing to homeschool is a legitimate sacrifice. And there's lots of things I talk about different ways that parents can generate income from home. But the truth is most families are giving up potential annual income. You're already making a sacrifice. You're investing 2 to 4 hours of daily direct teaching with your children. Again, that's a big sacrifice of time that parents whose children are away for most of the day aren't doing. So financial sacrifice, there's a time sacrifice. And then there's the social costs. You're getting judgment, you're experiencing isolation from people, you're experiencing criticism from others, right? So there's a financial cost, there's a social criticism, there's the time investment that you're giving up. But let's talk about outcomes. On on average, homeschoolers perform 15 to 30 percentile points above their publicly schooled peers, right? You are giving your child a significant leg up. That is ultimately when you start to prioritize and reconsider, reevaluate your sacrifices, what you actually see is they're not a sacrifice, they're an investment that's going to lead to far better future growth, better outcomes, and better possibilities and doors opening for our children. That's what it really is. Here's what they're really asking you to do when they're asking you to stay behind. They're asking you to sacrifice your child's potential for the school system's potential if you were to stay. And the thing is, thousands and millions of families have already stayed in that system, hoping that that potential would be better, and it didn't work. So it's completely reasonable to say, look, it's been tried by people before me, by my own parents, and we are not sacrificing our children for that system. When someone calls you selfish for homeschooling, ask them what they're willing to do, what they're willing to sacrifice for your child. Because if they're asking you to make a sacrifice that lays your child on the altar of that system and they're not willing to back it up with anything themselves, I think they're just being selfish. And it's okay for you to say, no, we're going to prioritize what's most important to us. The most selfish thing, it's keeping your child in a failing system to make yourself feel better. If people are laying guilt on you and you don't like that guilt, choosing to simply stay there because it means so you don't have to hear it anymore, that's selfish. So it's okay to prioritize, and change our thinking about these things so that we can start putting first things first. Quick pause. If you're feeling guilty about considering homeschooling you've already made the switch, but you're facing criticism, keep listening and I'll show you exactly how to build an unshakable confidence in your choice. Here's what I want you to do right now. If you haven't already, stop apologizing for putting your children first. It's not selfish, it's just parenting. Put your children first. That's what a parent does. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not unreasonable, it's not selfish, and it's not your responsibility to do something else over and against your children. Second, if you're ready to make a noble choice, but you need a clear plan to succeed, join my free Start Homeschooling community. Again, it's free. The link is below. Get support from parents who chose their children over the system. Find like-minded people who can support you in this process rather than always having those outside voices that want to tear you down for making a decision for your children and family. And then third, If you're ready to create a personalized homeschool plan that proves alternatives work, book your free discovery call with me. We'll design your family's educational mission in 30 minutes and give you direction and clarity how to best achieve the outcomes that you've hoped for and that you've set out for your family. Your children deserve better than a broken system, and you deserve better than guilt for wanting to give it to them. In next week's episode, we're going to discuss the socialization myth exposed, why homeschool kids are actually more prepared than for the real world, and the research that destroys this tired objection. Drop a comment with a guilt-inducing thing that someone said to you about homeschooling, and I will personally respond with a perfect comeback. Thanks so much for choosing courage over comfort. Your children will thank you for putting them first. And until next time, leading with purpose. Grow yourself so you can grow your kids. Goodbye.